Hello and welcome back. Sean here, Mountains Garage. This weekly update kind of rambles at first, but I promise we get to the good stuff toward the end. We went tool shopping, and I love tools.
It's a beautiful Wednesday. 1 week ago, I pushed that snow up in a pile. All that's left is there and there. But we've had lots of rain and wind, and now the roads are dry. It's almost 50 degrees. I'm gonna take the old Dodge and bring back some returnables. I decided to top off the fuel because you never know, it could snow tomorrow. This thing could be packed for the rest of the winter. It says I've been 6,248 miles since I LS swapped it. I reset my fuel level to 20 gallons. It's amazingly accurate. The factory gauge works most of the time, but this is a better indication. So I was going to actually get a car wash. I haven't washed this thing since I bought it 5 or 6 years ago, but the line was longer than I wanted to wait for, so I'll just take the back way home. I live a mile from Sebago Lake, the second biggest lake in Maine. This is a lower bay, and if this was 100 years ago, I'd be staring, almost touching, a railroad station. A beautiful railroad station that they tore down. Now this is the public boat launch. It's also the intake for the water supply from Portland, Maine, so you're not allowed to touch the water for 2 miles out here. There's a beautiful beach here that can't be used, but the old railroad tracks are still here. This is the Mountain Division Trail, Mountain Division Railroad. A beautiful day, other than the white caps. But if you're not familiar with Sebago Lake, you can go all the way up the lake, through the Songo River, through the Songo Locks, up into Brandy Pond, where I keep my boat, and under the bridge into Long Lake. So back in the day, you could come down Long Lake, through the locks, down through Sebago, and there was a hand-dug canal all the way to the ocean in Portland. The canal's still there, but it's not functional anymore. The canal was put out of business by the trains. The trains were put out of business by cars. I guess it's evolution. I also want to amend my statement. I would be inside the train station. Where I'm sitting is the footprint of the station. And that whining noise, yes, that's my fuel pump. Back at the shop, just parking the truck. I don't know if I've ever talked about this. Ultra Gauge, one word, is the brand. It plugs into your OBD2 connector. Right there, that I put in. And this is my speedometer. Again, I use it for fuel mileage. This is my long-term average. We can scroll through. This is you can adjust what you want to see from the main screen. This is page 1. Page 2 gives you other information. I'll keep scrolling. O2 sensors. My long-term average in 6,200 miles is 17.2. Cruising along, it'll show your live mileage. It usually shows around 19 to 20, but you add in some full throttle stuff and it lowers your average. So this is my main screen. Pretty cool. Nowadays, I bought this 5-6 years ago, so there's probably a lot nicer options, but it wasn't. I think it was $70 5-6 years ago. It's worked flawless. You plug it in, it does its own scanning. You make a few selections, and it helps to modernize your antiquated vehicle. Simpler. I mean, this is easy. No additional wiring to plug her in. The Ultra Gauge is also a scan tool. If you get a code while you're driving along, you should probably pull over, but using the buttons on the back of it, you can read the code, erase it. You know, of course you're pulled over to do this. I would never do that while I was driving. I get a reoccurring code for the knock sensors. I'm sure they're corroded. underneath the intake manifold, but it only does it about twice a year. So until it bothers me more, we're not going to worry about it.
If there is a concern with the LS Swap Dodge, it's the 4L80E that I installed 5 or 6 years ago when I swapped it. The oil I drained out was black as that tire. It had over 200,000 miles on it. I put a fresh filter and fluid in it. Didn't know what to expect. It's still going. When it's cold, it doesn't want to shift until the engine temperature gets to about 150. We're talking ambient temperature like today, about 30 degrees. People have been asking for 4L80E content. Maybe we'll rebuild one of these. Might as well rebuild this one. This is the exact transmission that's in the truck. And I will build it and put it in the truck. With HP tuners, I say we, my buddy Jeff has turned it up so the stock transmission shifts firm. When I modify the separator plate and whatnot on this, it may end up being too firm and I'll have to turn it back down. So I know a guy did the same thing. He shift kitted a 4L80E, put it in place of one that was wore out, and all of a sudden it was almost undrivable. It shifted so hard. So you may have to do some after tweaking, which is easily doable when you have tuning ability. So in the future, I need to get these out of the shed here anyway. I mean, they're protected from the weather, but I don't like them sitting here. So at some point this winter, I will drag this in and overhaul it on the channel. Should be a win-win. I built my trailer 11 or 12 years ago. It's been a fantastic rig. Hauls like a dream. I decked it with 2x lumber. And the first 5 or 6 years I was really good. I would pressure wash it, sorry about my shadow, and spray it with water seal. Well, you know what happens. You let a few years go by and you forget to do it. And I stepped on it the other day. And this center board right here, you can tell it's discolored. She's rotted. So now I got to pry that out of there and get the screws out of it. I made it so the wood just slips under the end piece. I was trying to think ahead. Hopefully I can get these truck body screws out. 2, 4, only 6 of them. My brother has the driver and the giant drill for him. It's a pretty slick rig, but I was just walking past it and said, that doesn't look good. And the rest seems super solid, so I'll pressure wash it again and either paint them or water seal them again. So it's always something. I used to keep up on everything and still worked a full-time job. Funny how that works, huh? So this drives home an interesting point for me. Here's a situation where this was all pressure treated, 2x12s and 2x6 down the middle. It's been elevated off the ground, relatively dry its whole life, other than when it rains or snows and then it dries off afterwards. It's dry most of the time. And there's air on both sides. Underneath, the wood still looks that yellowish green color, like when it was new. It's midsummer 2006. The rain finally stopped. It's July. I have a brand new slab, a pile of building materials, a pile of trusses. We're ready to start putting up wood. My brother volunteered to help me. The first thing he told me we had to do, and it took us 2 full weekends, is to put a row of cement blocks around the perimeter to jack the pressure treated sill up off the ground. You see a lot of people build a garage, they put the sill right down in the cement. Just like my brother said, in 10 or 15 years, it's going to be rotten and you're going to try to figure out a way to fix it. We put the effort in then, and it should last 100 years. Other than the dust and cobwebs, a roll block, pressure treated sill, I put a regular sill on top of that, and then the sill from the wall. We were looking to gain enough height for the lift, so we didn't mind a little extra wood. Still looks brand new. It also inspires me on one hand and upsets me on the other hand, because I never finished the trim around my doors and windows. I moved in, got busy, never finished. I need to do that. Last night, just before dark, I traded a set of traction bars for this pallet racking. Seems like a good trade, but the last thing I wanted to do was to unload it. But I did, and now I'm glad I did, because every time I don't do something like that, I regret it. And this morning, there's a local sheet metal shop the next town over selling off the equipment. I'm going to go check out some stuff in the LS Dodge, and the bed is empty. Back at the shop with a full load, I have been driving past the sheet metal shop for 4 decades or more. Never once stopped in. I always like the looks of the building, which is also for sale, but that's not going to happen. I wish I had more space, but that's 25 minutes away. You get spoiled by working in your backyard. Anyway, nice old guy, super reasonable prices. I'll unload everything, give you a look. For unloading options, it only takes a few minutes to pop the snowplow off the tractor and put the forks back on. That would be a good option. The pallet stacker works pretty good. I'd have to wrestle the equipment onto it, but it was an option. But I decided the engine crane was right inside the door, and the stuff is kind of awkward, so straps would probably be the way to go. Really don't want to scratch the old Dodge, so far this is working. And the slip roll here, lock former slip roll, is definitely the most awkward, I believe. This contraption is a electric slitting machine used to slit or cut long sheets of sheet metal. Definitely not on my radar, but he was showing it to me, demonstrated it, told me the price. Here it is in my yard, taking up more space. Probably something I won't use very often, but I couldn't say no. Next up is a Dayton spot welder, 110 volt, with a foot pedal stand. I can lift this one out by hand. It's not heavy, but it was inexpensive. Couldn't pass it up. The truck is all unloaded. The first item I'm going to show you was not on my radar. I went down to buy the slip roll, but it was an entire shop full of stuff. I couldn't buy everything, but I couldn't pass this rig up. It's a bead roller, obviously, made to do the end of pipe. It has 4-inch extensions, so you could do a pretty decent thing. I always thought they were kind of neat and compact. Never something I would buy because they're usually priced way out of what a regular bead roller would cost typically. You know, Pexto, lock former, that's the professional stuff, you know, many steps above Harbor Freight. Came with the dies that are on it and 3 more sets plus the extensions. Pretty cool. Just clamps to the bench. Next up is the electric slitter. I've already used it to cut those 6-inch strips out of a piece of metal that I have. This is typical me. I'm in the middle of a sheet metal shop. There's, 12 by 12 and 12 by 18 scraps everywhere. And the guy said he's just going to throw them away. You think I would have thought to ask for a few so I could practice with the machines when I got home instead of using existing metal that I might have been saving for something. But he had a whole bunch of galvanized scrap that I would never use for anything else. But I didn't think to ask, and nothing you can do. So this machine came with, these are the cutting wheels, a new set of cutting wheels. If 3 lifetimes from now I actually wear it out, you using the yellow marker, there's a measuring rig there. It'll cut 24 inches wide. So you could split a 4-foot sheet in half. That's the concept. You slide it in here and it takes it right through. I'm even gonna run it for you just for kicks. Let me set up the camera. All right, we'll give this a try. Turn on the power switch. Load in the metal. Just like that, you got 2 pieces. Pretty slick. It goes really fast. The slip roll really needs no commentary. The basic concept is you feed the metal in here, and the more pressure you put on the back roller, the more of a curve it makes. 36 inches is long enough to build a transmission tunnel or something like that. If you're really crafty, of course, you can make it tapered like a transmission tunnel should be. I've always wanted one of these, never had one of these. So most all the transmission tunnels I've ever built, I like to make them flat on top. Turns out I like those better. I may never make a transmission tunnel with this, but I have one now, so you never know. Again, it was a bucket list item. I missed out on a couple of them recently, and I vowed if I ever found one affordable, and the ones I was looking at were all rusty and didn't have a stand. They didn't come out of a functioning shop up until a few months ago. Here it is, and I'm happy. You can also run brake line or tubing in those grooves and curve those as well. The spot welder works. He told me he disconnected. This should operate with the foot. That's what actually turns on the electricity. He liked to squeeze it down and get everything lined up perfect and then reach in and turn on the timer. It has an adjustable timer. I'm not sure how fond I am of sticking my hand in there, but I did not electrocute myself, and I did manage to stick. It's probably hot when you use my gloved hand. I expected it to be a lot more blue, look like a weld. It's possible 110 volts. Maybe it can't even do anything this thick. It may prove to be completely useless, but I'll read about it, clean up the contacts, go from there. But I did technically stick 2 pieces of metal together with it. So I'll get back to you on this one in the future. Back at the bench, goofing around with the Pexto bead roller. It rolls a beautiful little bead. I decided to goof around with some aluminum tubing, and it actually, you have to put it in wrong. This is how you're supposed to do it. This is a stop in order to make the bead go out, so it would hold the coupler. You need to be up here, and you kind of have to steer it with your hand. I made this one too far in. I should have adjusted the stop out. I would have had much better results, but it actually made a pretty decent bead. My brother made me a nice little bench-mounted one that works perfect for coolant hoses and these, but I'm just messing around. Before I moved the stop, I freehanded this one out near the edge, and you definitely want the stop. It's usable, but I don't want him shaking it. It's usable. But yeah, this thing is pretty cool. Got a nice adjustable stop. It'll go all the way out into the bead. Pretty neat. I wasn't satisfied, so I reset the stop. And if this stuff wasn't black powder coated, it would look a lot nicer, but it's much more acceptable. You definitely hold the coupler on. Do this on, the natural finish piping, which I would never. I got this in a bunch of stuff that I bought. I don't think I'd ever buy the black, knowing now, having some experience with it. The powder coating they used actually sticks pretty good, and it's hard to remove it to weld it or now bead roll it. All I have to do now is find a home for all this junk. The 2 or 3 people that are left watching that made it through the video, thank you. You're probably already subscribed, so I won't even say like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment. If you know anything about any of these pieces of equipment, feel free to chat. I hope you're having a good week. This video got way too long, way too fast. Catch you next time.